Hello, everyone, to another episode of Meaningful Life, toward a Meaningful Life book club. My popular and meaningful book, no pun intended, which I too turn to all the time for inspiration. And it's an honor, again, to spend some time with you about a topic that perhaps is the biggest question we ask ourselves, or should be asking ourselves. And that is, do I matter? Do I matter? Now, for some, that may sound like a childish or simplistic question. But let me put it into context. There are 7.8 billion people on the planet now, and counting. 7.8 billion, that's a lot. Does one individual, you, I, matter? Are we significant in the scheme of things? Would the world be any different if you and I did not exist? Think of a grain of sand on a beach. Do you know how many billions of grains of sand there are? And this isn't just a philosophical question. It impacts everything about us. Because if we really feel we don't truly matter, we're arbitrary, we're optional, then how much do our decisions matter? You know, we could say, what difference does it really make at the end of the day? It may make a difference to a few people right now, here and now, but in the big cosmic scheme of things. So it has far-reaching implications, the question and, of course, the answer to the question. I want to share with you a very touching story that, for me, one of the most definitive moments of my life. When my book, Toward a Meaningful Life, was published, first published in 1995, the publisher, William Morrow, sent me on a book tour. I had no clue what a book tour was, to be very honest, at the time. They sent me that. I said, great. I was all excited. Going, traveling across the country. First, they scheduled 20 major cities. And a book signing, if you don't know what it is, essentially they schedule a talk and a book signing in major bookstores across the country. Barnes & Noble, then there was also Borders, sometimes independent booksellers. And throughout the day, all prepared well in advance, you do interviews. You do print interviews for newspapers, you do radio and TV. The internet was just in its infancy, just beginning. And that's what I did. 20 cities, it was very successful. We had over 100 to 150 average audience, which is considered a high number in these type of events. And they ended up scheduling 90 cities, which is another story of its own. You can imagine the journeys. I could write a book just about my journeys and experiences. And you're treated like a celebrity. Red carpet, you have someone driving you, you're in a hotel. But I remember very quickly learning, don't let it get to your head, because you turn into a pumpkin after midnight, basically. And there I was going city to city, different schedules, different venues. It was in one city, St. Louis, Missouri, where it was a Monday night. And I gave a talk. There was a very large audience for a different reason, not because of me. It was because there was a memorial service for the assassinated Prime Minister Rabin of Israel that night. So there was a big audience, and they ended up staying because I was the speaker. So they came for the memorial, but then many stayed. So it was a large, maybe a few thousand people in a JCC in St. Louis. Afterwards, people line up, you sign books, people comment, they speak to you. I get back to New York, I receive, I believe it was a letter. I don't think it was an email. I don't remember now. Maybe a letter or an email. A letter that I will read to you from memory because it's etched in my soul, in my memory, in my spirit, till this very day. A woman writes, I'm a 47-year-old executive that came to hear you speak. Someone had given me a copy of your book, and I was curious. I wanted to come over, but there was a long line. And anyway, I felt bashful, so I decided much better to put it in writing. I am, by all measures, a success story. I'm an executive. People respect me. I make a good living. I have equity, good contacts. made it in the corporate world. Everyone looking at me thinks I am a superstar. But in truth, beneath the veneer lies a woman in shreds. You see, my soul was murdered when I was a young child due to the abuse I endured at the hands of my parents, other family members, physical, emotional, psychological, and sexual abuse. It turned me into a wreck. I loathe myself. I blame myself. As I grew older, I really would try to hurt myself. I tried all types of therapy. Nothing really has worked. Relationships are a mess. Intimacy. I don't trust. I'm not trusted. I'm always testing people. And this is my life. What do people like myself do? When we don't have outer control, when we don't have inner control, we create outer control. I became super ambitious, super driven, climbed the corporate ladder. All the success is really a temporary way of finding some relief from my inner psychic pain, which is awful. Often I'm suicidal. I don't want to get out of bed. So I've long given up hope. So what I do is I breathe in and out every morning. I wake up and I try to make it day after day. Some days are really terrible. Some days are better. I've given up hope. Someone gave me a copy of your book, Toward a Meaningful Life. And I'm Jewish, but completely unaffiliated, especially due to my family. Any affiliation they had, I rejected everything because it was all toxic. But I was curious. I was leafing through the pages and a line jumped out at me. The beginning of the chapter on birth, which is the second chapter of the book, is a quote that you write, "Birth is God saying you matter." And I read it and it struck me like a silver bullet between my eyes. This is all her writing to me. So I read it again. Birth is God saying you matter. And I read it a third time. It so deeply resonated that I will read it the rest of my entire life. And something suddenly struck me. I don't know why. After 47 years, I realized that despite what others said about me, despite how I was treated, I mattered to the one that matters most, God. And my mere birth means I matter. I am valuable. I'm indispensable. We live in a society, she continues to write, and I know it of all people working in a corporate environment, where people's value is a statistic on someone's balance sheet. Our value is determined by our looks and by our youth and by our performance and our buying power and our social status and our financial wherewithal and so on. All things that are temporary and superficial and change. Nothing fundamental. And suddenly I heard for the first time that I matter because I exist, because I am, not because I perform, not because others like me. And I matter less when they like me less. For the first time, hope was ignited in my soul. And I realized I have much work ahead of me, but now I know what I need to do. I need to create, this is her words, which would be considered eloquent were it not for the circumstances. I need to create bypass surgery to bypass the infected arteries, psychologically speaking, that were impacted and violated due to the abuse, and reconnect to the pure moment when I was born, where God said, "You are my child, you're my life, you're indispensable, I love you unconditionally." And then she concludes, "Thank you for giving me back my life." You can imagine receiving a letter like that. This is years ago. We're talking about 35 years ago. 25 years ago, I'm sorry. I was crying uncontrollably. First of all, her story. Secondly, sharing a sacred trust with me. She doesn't even know who I am. I, of course, wrote her back, offering any type of help and support, asking her permission to tell the story. I went back to read the book, my own book, the one I wrote, because a book belongs to the author before it's published, and after it's published, it belongs to the reader. I wanted to see what she saw in this chapter, and I read this chapter through her eyes. Birth is God saying you matter. What a tremendous statement that is. And I asked myself, and I started asking audience that question, do I matter? Do you matter? Precisely an outgrowth of this story. So initially people chuckle or they're a little, they think it's a nonsensical question. Of course I matter. I have a healthy ego. I've got plaques on my wall. I have family that tells me I love me. They love me. I have co-workers. I have employees. I have employers, But let's rephrase the question. If you were never born, would it make a difference to anyone? Remember, once we're here, we find ways to justify our existence. But if you were never here, would it make a difference? No one's missing you, so there won't be a tragedy if you don't show up. Is there something missing on earth, in your in your world, in your community, if you were never born? Obviously, once you're here, we have family and friends and hopefully people who love us and trust us, and we trust them. So it creates a certain significance. But the big question on a cosmic level, not circumstantially, and not subjectively to those people that are in your small circle. Does the world in any way change? This woman compelled me to ask that question to myself, and I'm asking it to you, and each of us should ask that question. You see, I grew up, no home is perfect, in a relatively healthy family, nurturing, functional. I'm the oldest of 5 children, and my parents always told me they loved me and they treated me that way. They spoiled me. You can ask my siblings. You know how it is when you're the oldest, your siblings go to therapy because of you. You don't go to therapy because of them. You're almost like a surrogate parent. And they loved me and they spoiled me, yes. And I asked myself, as a result of this story, St. Louis woman's story, do I matter because my parents told me I'm special? And if one day they woke up and God forbid they said, you're not so special, do my stocks go down? Is it completely dependent on parents or friends or family? So I had the luxury of never having to ask this question. She did not have this luxury, this woman. The eclipse of the sun can reveal the power of sunlight much more than sunlight does. She did not have the luxury. She did not have the nurturing and the reinforcement and the confidence and the validation that every human being deserves. So she ended up feeling I don't matter. And then she discovered the truth, that it's not due to looks and youth and buying power and family and all those that love you that causes you to matter and be significant. Is because you were born. You were put here. I would say is the single most important statement of all in life. As a matter of fact, the founding fathers of this country sensed it in establishing and said all men are created equal. All people are created equal. Let's amend that a bit. But that's what it means. All, without exception. Despite color, race, culture, despite whether you agree with a person or don't agree with a person. It's the foundation of the dignity of life, that your life matters. So you'll say, but it's 7.8 billion people. Doesn't matter. Mozart, when he presented his musical composition the first time to the Archduke of Austria, and the Archduke thought he was a connoisseur of music, he said to Mozart, beautiful, but far too many notes. And Mozart purportedly responded, but not one more than necessary. In the scheme of things, just as a blade of grass, just as a subatomic particle, DNA, we can have 35 to 75 trillion cells in the human body. One cell is a mutation, an extra chromosome, or one missing, can wreak havoc. Think of a computer program. Hundreds, thousands, and million lines with millions of characters. To add a dot, take away a dot, the whole program could crash. We understand today it's not volume, it's not size. It's quality. And when we understand life in that way, that we're not just random creatures that came to this earth, but we were put here. And what you can accomplish, you and only you can accomplish. Not I, not all of people living in history, no one that ever lived or ever will live can accomplish that you have to accomplish. That is your birth. Birth is God saying you matter. You're indispensable. You're absolutely necessary. and everybody else as well. So we have to respect each person's uniqueness in the same way. And we complement each other. What a tremendous statement. I began developing a theory, which I've written to this woman. We communicate from time to time. She still struggles, but she's found her place. She's found her inner value. She's built her matter, her being mattering and her significance through her connection to God, through her connection to a higher purpose. So I developed this theory that perhaps the driving force of ambition in people's lives, why they want to succeed, maybe is due to a subconscious fear that maybe we don't matter after all. So we create monuments for ourselves. Here, look what I've done here, I did there, and so on. And I'm not suggesting some of these accomplishments are not valuable. But what is the driving force of finding being significant, feeling important? It's not just to be dismissed as simple childish ego. It's something that we need. And perhaps there is that fear, especially in our modern society, where things have become so industrialized and depersonalized. Yeah, technology has connected us in unprecedented ways. But what about your personal value? When's the last time you sat pre-quarantine with a person you love, eye to eye, soul to soul, heart to heart for a conversation? So on one hand, they tell us we're more connected than ever. But has it actually improved our relationships, our loves, our connections? You can have thousands of friends on Facebook, you don't even know who they are. So it's become a word, a cliche. When we begin to recognize, and now is the best time to do that we each have a unique spirit, an indispensable soul. You are a unique piece of music in a far greater composition. And not just unique, indispensable. You truly matter. That is the essence. Because when you have that, everything else follows. Because if I matter, and not in an arrogant way, if I matter, then my choices matter, my decisions matter, the people I want to interact with matters, not just now, but forever. Because I'm fulfilling the calling, the mission for which I was born, for which I was created. So, this chapter, Birth in Toward a Meaningful Life, with the story that I just shared, carries a very, very particular message to each one of you, to each one of us. And I speak personally, one-on-one. You absolutely matter. You are significant and indispensable. There are things you need to do every day to remind yourself, because you're going to be inundated with all kinds of messages that look at advertising, that if you look like this, you'll be more beautiful. If you smoke this, if you travel here, you purchase this, status symbols, images. So we are constantly under attack. The attack is that we're being told, buy this, and you'll be a better person. You'll be more valuable. In truth is, when's the last time you'll see a billboard that says, birth is God saying you matter? You know why? Because no product is being sold. You have that already. It's inherent within you. So we need to work overtime to counter all those effects and messages that are trying to tell us, do this, dress this way, behave that way, act this way, look like this one, travel here, buy these products, and then you'll be a better person. That's what we need to do. So every morning, here's a simple exercise. In the morning, as soon as you wake up, before you do anything else, just recite, but personally, not mechanically, a one-line statement. Thank you. Thank you for returning my soul to me. Thank you for making me matter. Thank you for renewing my contract and believing in me that I have something unique and indispensable to bring into this world. Do this every day for 1 minute, but conscientiously, with thought, with mindfulness, with your heart and soul. It will transform your life, because that will give you the empowerment necessary that as you move along in your journey, whatever that day will consist of, you'll have this resource, this arsenal that says, I matter from within, not because others say I matter, not because I please somebody or displease somebody, not because of expectations and trying to live up to other people's expectations or demands of me, but rather because I matter, because I am here. I was put here to live up and fulfill a unique and indispensable purpose that I and only I can accomplish. Well, God bless you all. Stay well and healthy. And we'll continue this journey every week, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And please share, communicate, critique, suggest. We're all in this together. We all need each other. Each of us is indispensable. Each of us needs the other to complement, that we can create one beautiful community, one beautiful large symphony of indispensable souls, because at the end, birth is God saying that you matter. Absolutely, now and forever. Thank you.